He is the staff writer for The Athletic, covering the Indianapolis Colts, and co host of the formerly known 1% Better podcast, now called the Upper Quartile Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, he's just a kid from Romeoville, Illinois.
What?
James Boyd. Welcome to the program, James.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I don't know if an applause is necessary, but happy to hop on with you guys, and thanks for reaching out.
Hey, man, this is a big time show with a big time guest. You deserve it, bro.
Appreciate it.
So for every guest we have on, we like to get our listeners like a little backstory of, because every success story has their very own unique story. So with you, let us know your story of, starting from being a kid from Romeoville, Illinois, to one of the voices for the Colts and the Athletic.
Yeah, pretty crazy journey. Didn't think I'd be here at 27 years old covering an NFL team, but grew up in Romeoville, Illinois, 45 minutes outside of Chicago. And the reason my Twitter name is Romeoville Kid, it's kind of like a troll joke that I did in college because everyone from where I'm from says they're from Chicago because it makes you sound tougher.
Right.
But I take a lot of pride in having a nice suburban life growing up. My parents worked very hard, so I figured, why would I ever lie about being from a nice place? So
just a suburban dude.
Exactly. So it kind of stuck, and then I got my start playing sports. Obviously, basketball was my big thing. I'm a skinny dude, never played football, but when I was in college, after my high school stardom ended, which I was not a high school star, I was an average player at best. But after that, I got into sports writing maybe my junior year of college at the University of Illinois. And then when I graduated, I ended up getting a job covering high school sports in Northwest Indiana. And so I kind of worked my way further down into the state. Ended up covering the Pacers for Indianapolis Star and then switching over to cover the Colts for the Athletic. So I'm 5 years out of college at this point. I'm getting a little older, but still fun, still young, still new to a lot of these things, but grateful for every opportunity. I take a lot of pictures everywhere I go. When I was doing Pacers, I would get a picture almost in every arena. Same thing with the Colts, because I think that, if I remind myself every day this is a privilege, it'll never get old. Obviously, there's long days, hard days, but overall, I get paid to write about football, talk about football. So life is pretty good.
Exactly. Like you said when you came on earlier on the Zoom calls, you're living the dream, man, and we see it on your Twitter and everything through those photos. But all right, let's get into it about the Indianapolis Colts. So, since there were reports leading up to the draft of Will Levis to Indy all week leading up to it, what was your initial reaction to the Colts drafting, in your words and not mine, the project quarterback Anthony Richardson, 4th overall?
We could talk about that a little later, but oh man, I had to own it. But I will say this: all the local media leaned heavily towards Anthony Richardson and not Will Levis. The Will Levis chatter came from a lot of national media.
Exactly.
And so I felt like anyone reading our stuff here in Indy, they were not surprised. I was not surprised. I felt like the Colts were higher on Anthony Richardson than Will Levis, and obviously they were because they took him. And so perhaps the most surprising thing that's come out of that was the fact that Jim Irsay says like a day later, yeah, we would have,
awesome.
Taken Will Levis had Anthony Richardson not been there. And I was like, wait, what? Like Will Levis didn't even go in the first round. So that was surprising. And so overall, though, I think they got the guys they wanted. Didn't have to give up any draft capital to do it, which is a plus.
Right.
And he's a freak. There's a lot of things to work on, but I think that he has a lot of talent and a lot of stuff that you can't teach. And you see it. I saw it at rookie minicamp, saw it at the combine, where he just does things that other people can't do and can't really be taught to do. So I'm excited for his future. He's only 20, turns 21 pretty soon here. And so it'll be exciting to see what this new era of Colts football looks like with him leading the way.
Yeah, so it's awesome to see, like you just mentioned, he's 20 going on 21. You wouldn't think that just watching his interviews, his maturity and everything it's professional next level.
Yeah, I think that he actually got more mature throughout the pre-draft process, because when we talked to him at the combine, someone asked him about putting more touch on his throws, and he's like, well, if I throw it hard, they better catch it.
I do remember that, yep.
Okay, that's not a great answer. And then someone else asked him about the accuracy and He's like, well, I can't throw it and catch it. I'm like, another answer you really can't say, which, as you all know, when you're the quarterback of an NFL team, especially when you win, it's everyone, contributed. When you lose, it's all your fault. Exactly. That's just how it goes. It goes over well in the locker room. It goes over well in the media. So even if you're being honest, maybe you don't want to be too honest. And so I felt like throughout this process, he's gotten better, having more accountability. Even I asked the question, which for the record, the question was, there are certain teams that label you as a project quarterback. So what do you think you could bring a team right now versus in the future? And so he didn't hear anything about after the word project or before. It was just project.
Sure didn't.
Which I felt like it was a fair question. Maybe that's not the right word to use. Kind of like the Giannis thing with failure. Maybe failure isn't the right word to use in that moment. And it'll get, somebody going on a whole tangent. But I felt like it was a fair question because, as Chris Ballard pointed out, and the scouts, Morocco Brown, one of the lead scouts, they're not drafting Anthony Richardson because of who he is right now, what he did in college last season. It's more so the flashes he showed and what he can become. And to me, that is something you have to work with. You have to massage, you have to sculpt. And so I followed up with him when he got drafted, which was fun.
It was amazing.
I think the fans kind of thought it would be more intimidating than it actually was. For me, it was more like a joke. But I figured I would just lean into it and, wouldn't run from it. Like, I don't want to be the guy who whispers to you in the locker room, hey, I was the guy. Like, no, just own it. Because I feel like if I want players to own their performance, I need to own my own performance, and asking questions and doing a better job of that. So, it was a joke at first with the question, but he gave a brilliant answer about how you learn from Tom Brady to work hard and to continue to work hard even if you have success. So that was fun. And for me personally, selfishly, I love the fact that we're going to get a chance to see this guy up close and personal because there's been no one like him ever. So that's very fun.
Right, and like his comparisons coming out were obviously like he's built like Cam Newton. He's got the speed of Lamar Jackson. But I love his answer of how, like, all right, I was Cam Jackson. Now I'm ready to be Anthony Richardson. So that shows a lot of maturity there on his end.
And also, I feel like for him, he just needs experience all around.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Like mentally, physically, with the game, experience all around. That's all he needs, especially being a franchise quarterback.
Definitely. 4th overall. I mean, that was one of our next questions coming up. Like, what are your thoughts on if it is the right move to start him week 1 or let him sit back behind Gardner Minshew and learn the ropes, so to speak?
Yeah, I think it depends. It sounds like they would be open to at least starting him week 1. I don't think that I would have said this had I not heard from Shane Steichen, heard from, just his angle, his perspective on it. He was saying, he only got 13 starts. He needs reps. And so a lot of that will come with learning the playbook, learning your teammates. How do you command the locker room? And also, how do you protect the guy? Like, don't throw him out there if your offensive line is going to be exactly what it was last year.
Yeah, I was about to say how they played last year because, I mean, that was one of the biggest disappointments from last season for sure.
Yeah, so that's my biggest thing is making sure when you do throw him out there, it's for good. Like, you're not going to yank him, after 2 games because he's getting, teed off on. So I do think there's a possibility he starts week 1. I don't know how great that possibility is right now because he's still so new to everything and hasn't even met like his veteran teammates and stuff. But I would be shocked if he doesn't play a decent amount throughout his rookie season, enough to gain some experience. And so I'm excited about that. And the thing with Gardner Minshew is he's very self-aware. Like, he doesn't strike me as someone who's going to be mad or something when the time comes, if he starts initially, to like take a back seat to Anthony Richardson. He knows what his role is in the NFL. He knows what he brings to this team and why he was brought in, and that's to be the backup / bridge quarterback. And so obviously, as the writer, I want to see Anthony Richardson as soon as possible. But as the franchise, you want to make sure that you're helping him along the right way because you don't want to throw him in the deep end too soon and then he can't swim, and it kind of ruins the start of his career. Because to me, it's very rare you get guys who can be good or great in any situation. You need to make sure that his situation is conducive to helping him succeed.
Exactly. I agree with you there. So we mentioned rookie minicamp. You were there front and center. What were your key takeaways from rookie minicamp?
Obviously, the main one was Anthony Richardson. I felt like there were some brilliant, plays where stuff just looked so easy. and you're like, okay, only 5 guys on earth can probably make that type of throw or do that kind of run and have it all kind of come together like that. But there was also some misses and some miscues. Some of that could have just been communication issues. There was one throw where it wasn't even close, and I was thinking that had to be like a miscue on a route or something like that. But then there was also throws where, to me, this is just through the 2 practices I saw, he misses high a lot. Like that's usually how he, is off target. It isn't really way off or it's usually just a few inches or a few feet too high. And so if he can clean that up, obviously that would be great towards him being a better quarterback. And so I think that he's in a space now where he can just play and get better and be believed in, because for 5 months he was being ridiculed and told what he couldn't do for so long. And that can, as much as you drown that out, that can get annoying. And so that can get heavy. So I think that he brought, nice bounce to his step to, the workouts and the team gatherings. And, Shane Steichen said that. And I expect that to continue when he gets back in the building on the 15th.
Definitely. He's definitely bringing in some swag and confidence, something we haven't really seen from an Indianapolis quarterback in a long time. And another thing,
Andrew Luck didn't have swag?
Oh, 7 years ago, man. Come on. That's a long time. It felt like forever ago. You know what I mean?
No, I'm just joking. I don't know if Andrew Luck would even say he has swag. Yeah, no, I definitely hear you on that, man.
But anyway, Brother Brent has a few questions for you here.
Yeah. So first off, him getting picked 4th, I got to say it, put our GM caps on. Mm-hmm. Just for a second here. You know how Jim Irsay is. He said he would pick Anthony Richardson first because he's their top quarterback. Mm-hmm. So what would be your thoughts with how faithful they are with Irsay saying that?
I think it's Irsay being Irsay because
you gotta love him.
I do. There's one thing I'll say. Sometimes he can say too much, and you're like, "Wow, I would just love to have an owner that never talked. Make the job easier." But I applaud him for good, bad, or ugly, always facing the media. But one thing you kind of have to parse through when you're on, this side of it is some of this is like kind of revisionist, because as you all know, the first quarterback he mentioned, not by name, but during Shane Steichen's hiring press conference, he said, the Alabama kid, looked pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
That was, to my knowledge, I don't think Anthony Richardson went to Alabama. I don't know if he's ever been to Alabama.
He definitely did it. He did play in the SEC, though, if that counts for anything.
Exactly. And so I think that that was just his way of gassing up the pick. But I don't think that any team could say definitively that Anthony Richardson was always going to be their number 1 pick because he's so raw. Now, if he had the ability and the stats to back up, his physical attributes like a Cam Newton, he would have been the consensus number 1 pick. So I didn't take, too much of that into consideration. I just thought Jim Irsay was talking like he usually is. But I think it's really cool that he's excited about his quarterback, because for 4 years, it was hard to really rally around that position because you just didn't know how long it would last. Obviously, you hope that this is a very, long and fruitful tenure.
Hey, being 20 years old, too, he's got a lot of time ahead of him, too.
Man, for real.
And especially right now, who do you think are any available free agents that might help him out?
I think the biggest name that I keep hearing and that makes the most sense is Dalton Risner, just because of the guard experience. They need a guard. I think that was the one area of the NFL draft where I was like, you guys really didn't attack the offensive line enough, in my opinion. I expected them to go offensive line maybe in the first 3 rounds. Now, I'm not knocking the picks that they got. I think they hit it out the park with the guys that they got.
Home runs, for
sure, yeah.
Yeah, however, as football guys, the game is won in the trenches. It's great to have skill players. It's great to have, weapons. But if you can't use them because you don't have time, then what are we doing? So Chris Ballard said, he's got some things up his sleeve, and he's going to keep, tinkering with the offensive line and other position groups until, we get to that preseason, regular season and start. But I just think that they cannot, under any circumstance, run the same unit back out there and expect different results because, number one, it failed so miserably last year. When you did that, you kind of banked on some guys stepping up and they didn't. And then number two, everyone's a year older. And so, of course, I would expect Quentin Nelson to bounce back. Like he's earned that type of trust because he's been a great player throughout the first few years of his career. Maybe you trust Braden Smith and Ryan Kelly to bounce back as well because you paid them a lot of money. But,
sure did.
I mean, I don't think you can bank on Will Fries being an unquestioned starter or even Bernard Ryman, who showed promise. I don't think you can bank on him being an unquestioned starter as well. So I expect some other guys he brought in. I know they drafted Blake Freeland, but, again, is he a guy who can come in right away and start and be an impact player? I don't know. But we'll see. That's my only big gripe with the draft. But other than that, I'm excited for that, and we'll see. I don't know if they go out and get Dalton Risner or someone else on the offensive line because it's going to cost you some money. But in the long run, you're like, hey, if we can get a guy who can be here for the foreseeable future, help our rookie quarterback, then the cost really isn't that high because, as you all know, it's a quarterback league. If you protect your quarterback, you got a chance. And, I mean, who were the Bengals before they got Joe Burrow? And they're still trying to figure out how to protect them. And God knows if they ever do figure that out, I mean, you can probably pencil them into being in the AFC Championship game as long as he's there.
Yeah, well, he even said the window for the Super Bowl is my whole career. So that being said there.
What a flex, by the way.
Man, well, that video was in my head, the toss-up in Buffalo. I mean, we were at that game, so we seen it live. I'm like, we're in for something today, man. But, yeah, speaking on the rookies, they did sign a good amount of undrafted free agents just to bring in the competition level up to pretty much light a fire under everybody, get the competition rolling there. But with that being said, other than Anthony Richardson, which rookie do you see making the most immediate impact for the Colts this season?
I think it's a toss-up between Josh Downs and Juju Brents. I think Josh Downs.
Hey, both dogs. Both absolute dogs.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they talked a big game on draft night. Very confident young men. I think what helps their confidence maybe land more and resonate more is that they proved it. It's a little bit different if you're coming in and you're saying you're going to do this, do that, and you haven't really done it, which is sort of the case with Anthony Richardson. I think that he's shown flashes of it, but it's harder to, like, rally behind that as opposed to someone who's done it. Like Josh Downs, he was dominant the last 2 seasons at North Carolina, and really the biggest knock on him is just his size. If he was 6 foot, no one will be saying anything. He'd probably be a first-round pick if he was 6 foot. That's how good that he was in North Carolina. Same thing with Juju Brents. It's, he was able to back up what he's done. He had a pretty good start to his career at Iowa, had a really strong end to it at Kansas State. And so I think that those 2 guys will be the biggest impact guys right away, probably even more so than Anthony Richardson because, as you all know, it's just not as complicated as quarterback. It's very hard to come in as a rookie quarterback, 20 years old, and just command everything. It's very rare for a person to do that like Andrew Luck did back in the day. So I'm excited to see Josh Downs. I think Juju Brents will contend for a starting spot as an outside cornerback, and that's why they drafted him. I mean, you draft these guys pretty high because you expect them to be playmakers and guys who are difference makers potentially from day one.
Yeah, especially in that cornerback room. I mean, it's pretty much open game for everybody, It was kind of a depleted position going into the draft, and I feel like that was one of the most important positions they had to look into going into the draft. But so I got a question from our other co-host, Dylan, who couldn't make it today. Freshly new father. Congratulations again.
Oh, congrats to him. That's what's up.
So obviously I'm the only Colts fan here, okay? So I get a lot of crap thrown my way. I'm surrounded by nothing but Buffalo Bills fans here.
Sorry about it,
James. So Dylan has been pretty much butthurt ever since Jonathan Taylor rushed for those 5 touchdowns 2 seasons ago. But he has a quick question I will ask on his behalf. Is there still a shot to get the 2 Super Bowls this decade like Jim Irsay promised, or is that dream dead? What's your thoughts on that?
Oh man, see, you're trying to get me out of the owner's good graces, but
yeah, it's Dylan, man. Hey, he's always looking for trouble. He's always looking for trouble.
Look, I like pettiness. I like smoke. I like all of that. I think that you need more of that in sports.
100%.
But I'll say this: I think that he's always been that super optimistic guy. I don't think that you're going to win 2 Super Bowls in this decade, mainly because they've only won 1 since moving to Indianapolis, and so. They've been to 2, they've won 1, and it's really hard to win the Super Bowl. Even people who are penciling the Eagles to be back there this upcoming season, yes, they're probably the favorites, but favorites aren't like they are in the NBA where you can, basically bank on a team making it as long as they don't have any injuries. One fluke play in a playoff game, even beyond injuries, can change everything. 100%. And so I think that's why I say it's going to be so hard. And for the first time in a few seasons, the Colts are finally admitting that they're farther back than they thought they were. So I think that they need to be serious about looking at this as a rebuild rather than just a retool or a rebrand. Like, no, if you have to have some lean years for over this upcoming season and then the one after that, whatever the case may be, just make sure you're building it right. That way you're able to, not have it be so much of projections and rather than reality. You're looking at a team that can actually do something. So I'm excited about that. And I think you as a Colts fan and other Colts fans wouldn't be too opposed to not having the greatest season and having a shot at Marvin Harrison Jr. coming to town. Man. So, Jim Irsay said he had a conversation with Marvin Harrison Sr. Before the draft, and I could imagine that probably was about C.J. Stroud and his son. So we'll see if that happens and what happens there, because if they're able to get a player of that caliber, obviously that would change a lot, not only for the Colts, but any team, because that dude is the truth. Like he's Marvin Harrison Jr., but he might be like the senior when it comes to the body frame and the size. I mean, he's just his dad, but he's bigger, which is insane.
And I think if he would have stayed healthy during that playoff game, Ohio State, I think they win 100%.
They win. I think they win that game.
But yeah, who was it? It was either PFF or CBS that had like the way too early projections for next year's draft order. I'm sure you've seen it.
Yep.
They had Arizona 1 and 2, Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. at 2, and then they had Indianapolis at 3. I hope the season's not that bad, but now that we're on the topic, this was also another question from our buddy Dylan. What is your personal expectations for the Colts this season? What do you think is going to be the projected record for them?
Yeah, I would go somewhere maybe 5-12. I probably wouldn't go over 6 wins, mainly because you have a lot to go through at quarterback. Even if Gardner Minshew leads you to a couple of wins, I just expect the inevitable growing pains to happen with Anthony Richardson, assuming he plays, which I think that he has to play at some point this season. I'll keep saying that. And so I don't expect him to come in and be a great quarterback from day one or even from season one. So I expect some ups and downs, some throws that make you go, wow, this guy is amazing. Some throws where you're like, okay, he's got some room to grow. And the crazy part on my end is just kind of getting through and kind of sidestepping a lot of the hyperbole, because every throw that he makes is going to be on the money. Yep. He's going to be, this guy's, amazing. And then there's going to be other throws that aren't so great, interceptions probably, where people are like, this guy is a bust. And so as long as they're able to keep him with a level head, understand that the league is going to humble you no matter how good you are. It humbles everyone because it's so hard. As long as they understand that, you get to 4 or 5 wins and that somewhere in that range, 6 wins, that's okay, as long as you're able to say you're making progress in the right direction. Now, I don't expect them to contend for a division title, but I also don't expect them to just completely bottom out either. I think that Shane Steichen has too much pride for that.
Oh, yeah.
And quite frankly, you still have some pretty talented players. Like, on paper, I think that Jonathan Taylor, a healthy Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman Jr., whoever you have at quarterback, you got, DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart on the other side. I mean, your back end's going to be thin when it comes to the secondary. So maybe teams, pick on you, in the secondary because you got some young guys out there. But
for sure,
I think you're too good to just flat out bottom out where they're like 1 or 2 wins. I expect around 4 to 6.
Yeah, I think they got way too much pride too. They're not throwing in the white towel for nothing. So you hear that, Anthony Richardson? He's got you as the project quarterback, and he's got you at 4 to 5 wins next season. So, yeah. So, no, I'm just joking.
The joke now is like, when he makes the Hall of Fame, I guess he'll thank me and go all death row, like he didn't believe in me. This guy's fault.
Oh yeah.
And if that happens, Anthony Richardson, I'll be there to eat my crow. So there you go.
So what you're saying is James Boyd is the reason why Anthony Richardson is going to have a Hall of Fame career.
I take
he's gonna
credit.
He's gonna win.
All the good things are my fault. All the bad things, none of it, is my fault. But
you can't claim
in all seriousness, I think that he's got a really good head on his shoulders. He's really determined to get better. And one thing that I'm going to hit on, or try to hit on even more throughout the season as I get to know him better, is just how hard he works. Because I think sometimes when you see players who are as physically gifted as him, the notion is like, oh, it just comes easy to him. But I don't think that, just because you're talented, it comes easy. Like the natural stuff, then yeah, it's God-given ability. But I think it's almost a disservice to him to say, like, it all comes easy. Like, no, he's worked extremely hard to become the number 4 pick, the new face of a franchise at 20 years old. And I expect him to continue to uphold that high work ethic and high standard for himself, not only because of what he wants to do on the football field, but what he wants to do off of it with his younger brother watching, mother watching, things like that. Like, that's a different type of motivation. And so I'm excited to see it. And I'll be here to document it all, the good, bad, the ugly. And as long as I don't use the P word anymore, I'll be good.
You'll be all right. Just real quick, we have a Commanders fan in the building too, intern Scooty B. He's got a quick question for you, if that's all right, James.
Sounds good.
Yo, what's going on, James?
How you doing?
Good, bro. How are you? As the Commanders fan, I just had a quick question on the whole Jim Irsay tweet here. I know it's not directly pointed towards the Commanders, but I'll give you a break on the Jim Irsay stuff. Let's just be honest. Are we in trouble for trying to contact Andrew Luck? Are we in trouble?
I don't know. I think that it has to really come out what was like the specific nature of the contact.
Yeah.
However, I think that it was a poor decision, mainly because everyone in the world knows Andrew Luck.
Hey,
Anthony Richardson still
we're already moving on.
He's still playing. But I think everyone in the world knows that Andrew Luck is not playing football again in the NFL. And so I just thought that it was odd for them to reach out in any capacity, because when he walked away from the game, he knew it was over. I mean, there's a whole podcast about it on The Athletic. You can check it out yourselves, anybody listening, but it's a done deal. And I just think that, as long as they didn't maybe cross the line too much, maybe they just get a slap on the wrist. But if they do find that it's tampering, the consequences could be hefty, as we saw with, the Dolphins, where they lost the first round pick because of it. So, you're asking me if the Commanders are in trouble. It seems like they're always in something. I don't know if it's trouble.
They're always up to no good, man.
We're always making bad decisions. We're up to no good.
But in all seriousness, jokes aside, I think that them moving on to a new ownership group will help with a lot of that, because a lot of this stuff has come from Dan Snyder and his regime. So maybe that is the last little thing you have to deal with, and then now you can move into a new era with Sam Howell and see how that goes.
Yeah, so, I mean, we could see Jim Irsay throw a curveball at the Commanders. I mean, so he pretty much already got Dan Snyder to sell a team. So he's going to let the Commanders trade for Andrew Luck, okay? They're going to get slapped on the wrist for that, and then Andrew Luck's just going to retire on them. How's that sound, James?
Oh, my goodness. I mean, you can try to spin it however you want. He's not coming back. He's not going to play anymore. And in all seriousness, they own his rights. So he retired. He had 3 years left on his contract. They famously let him keep the signing bonus and everything like that. Yep. But his property rights and all of that belong to the Colts. And so if he were by some miracle to come back, out of retirement, it would be in a blue and white uniform and not anything else. But at that point, obviously, then you have Andrew Luck and Anthony Richardson beef, which I don't have the energy to cover or write about. And so it's not going to happen. They entered a new era finally. And I think the Colts have drawn that line in the sand where, okay, we're going a new era, new direction. I think every other team needs to do that too, because that guy's not coming back. He was great when he was here. Mm-hmm. I think that he catches a lot of heat for things that people don't really understand. I don't think you can question that guy's love for the game when he played through the stuff that he played through, having, spleens ripped and stuff like that. And so, I don't get too deep into it, but just enjoy the now. And if you're the Commanders, believe in Sam Howell, like Ron Rivera was eloquently saying at the owners' meetings when they were denying any interest in Lamar Jackson, which was absurd.
I still can't believe that whole fiasco, but that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, I could go on a whole rant about that, but I was thinking to myself like, ooh, Sam, like you might be catching some strays you're not supposed to, so we'll see.
I got faith in Ron Rivera, but I got faith in Sam Howell, but I got no faith in Ron Rivera. That's what I should say.
Oh, jeez. Well, that's a whole nother story.
We'll see,
man.
We'll see. There's a lot of things going on. And honestly, the joke here is with the Commanders, there's always something going on beyond the football. Even here in Indy last season, it was dysfunctional. It was crazy.
Man.
But it was never like legal crazy where I'm reading through like court documents. And so I do not envy my my Washington Commanders brothers and sisters over there. So they can you all can have that, and I'll just keep up with Jim Irsay and his guitar collection and other things.
You gotta love it. So yeah, we got James Boyd here, staff writer for The Athletic, covering the Indianapolis Colts. James, we can't let you slide out of here, which I just want to give a quick thank you for giving us your time here, covering, talking to us about the Indianapolis Colts. But to move on to a sport that you used to cover here, I see your tweets on Twitter. NBA playoffs are buzzing here. So I can't let you leave here without giving us your NBA Finals champion. Who you got? And why is it the Lakers?
Oh man.
Set you up.
I mean, I would love for it to be the Lakers. Like I said, I like LeBron a lot. I think whenever he wins anything, it just makes everyone else so mad. But I do think that
here comes the butt.
Yeah, I'll stand on it. I think that the Lakers have a good shot as anybody. I'll go Lakers, Celtics in the finals, and Lakers in 7. I think that that's
that'd be amazing.
A classic in there. Anthony Davis perhaps gets his first Finals MVP, and we'll see how it goes from there. But there's a lot of good hoops though. I'm very excited about what's been happening because, I mean, you're seeing what Devin Booker is doing, and I'm like, man, is this guy good enough to just carry them to the Western Conference Finals? Is he that good? Is LeBron, got enough left in the tank to be a number 1, number 2 guy on a championship team? They're playing great defense, or is Steph Curry going to spoil the party because he's, in my opinion, the best player in the league still? Like, he is unbelievable. And so there's a lot of things going on in the West. The East, obviously, with Joel Embiid, James Harden, at least James Harden for the most part, turning back the clock and having some all-time great performances the last few games. So then you got Jimmy Butler lurking, who I feel like he's just like the ultimate bully.
Yeah.
Where he just he comes in, he just knocks everything off the table and tells you to clean it up.
Yeah,
that's him.
Jimmy's different.
Yeah, I mean, he's like a top 5 player in the NBA every year in the playoffs, and you don't hear from him. You don't think of him. He's not a first-team All-NBA guy.
No,
and then he comes to the playoffs, and I'm like, wow, this guy's playing like he's one of the greatest players ever is kind of what he looks like during certain stretches. So I'm excited about that, but I would love to see Celtics Lakers in the finals, get a classic rematch going and see if LeBron and AD can hold off that new regime with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown.
Love to hear it, man. And we're looking forward to seeing the new regime of the Indianapolis Colts. There's high hopes, man. Listen, the past couple seasons I've been getting a little ahead of myself, right? I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not just speaking for myself here, but now we got a young stud at quarterback. Could be a superstar if he does reach a ceiling like they're talking about. So you're up there front and center to see it all, man. We really appreciate you hopping on Tank Talk today, James. Hopefully we can do this again soon. It was awesome.
Yeah, man. Feel free to hit me up throughout the season. I'll be happy to come on and talk all things Colts and obviously Anthony Richardson's development and, how much he makes me eat my words from the combine.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, James Boyd.
Thank you.